Are you a nice guy or a people pleaser? Because if you answered yes, if you are a nice guy or a people pleaser and this is something that you struggle with, then maybe there's a reason for that you've not looked at before. Now, I believe fundamentally that a man, in order to fully become a mature, healthy man, instead of just a boy or a conformist or a blind follower of authority, he must make peace with being alone. No matter, even if you have you found your soulmate or have a fantastic intimate relationship, or even if you have a great circle of friends who you feel really trust and understand you, etc. Ultimately, there is this unbridgeable gulf where they won't know your thoughts, they don't know your emotions, the experiences that you have are completely private to you. You're born alone, you have to experience life completely alone, and ultimately you will face death alone. No one can do it for you. This is what it means. This is what existential isolation means. But here's what happens when a person cannot make peace with existential isolation. A person might feel that they only exist in the eyes of other people. Therefore, they need to make other people happy for them to feel like they're a good person. A person might adapt their behaviors excessively and become a nice guy people pleaser because they're terrified of other people leaving them or abandoning them. All because they have this fear of isolation and fear of solitude, so they can't be alone. You can't be alone under any circumstances, so I need to just make people happy in order to do that. A man who can't make peace with solitude might compulsively chase sexual experiences with different people. Ultimately looking for a savior, looking to be saved from his isolation in a way that can never be actually realized. Constantly looking for a rescuer. We're not looking, in this case, if we're afraid of solitude, we're not looking for a person, we're not looking for a relationship, we're actually just looking for someone to save us ultimately from ourselves. If we can't face isolation and can't face our own solitude, then we might stay in toxic or abusive or dysfunctional relationship dynamics because that toxic dynamic is preferable to the solitude that we are so afraid of. There's a price that a man pays in this society when he cannot be alone, when he is needy. Society is a lot more forgiving of women for being needy. But if there is an existentially needy man, society, other people, women in his relationships, they are not kind to a needy man. And ultimately, as men, we know this. So what am I really suggesting here? I'm suggesting that if you're a nice guy, if you're a people pleaser, if you compulsively look for sexual experiences to fill some sort of void, if you're constantly thinking that you're going to meet a perfect relationship one day that's going to make everything okay and save you from yourself, then it's because ultimately, man, you're afraid of being alone. You're afraid of loneliness. You're afraid of solitude. And a man who is afraid of solitude will be stunted in his psychological development. He will never be a leader. He will never be fully an authentic man. Because to a man like that, approval from other people is more important than authenticity. But if you don't want to be that kind of man, if you want to be a man who is authentic, who is a leader of his own life, a man who cannot be swayed really, a man who really he lives his own life and he lives life fully on his terms, the man, you got to make peace with being alone. You got to make peace with solitude. But how do you do that? I posted this on Facebook recently and someone asked me that question. It's like, look, I've got to be honest. The idea of being alone scares me. The man in question told me that he was in an intimate relationship. He was in a marriage for 20 years. And he divorced and now he finds himself that he can't be alone anymore. He can't be alone at all. He never has been. He's been out of practice with it. So what do you do? How do you become comfortable with being alone? Well, man, you got to be alone more. It's as the Zen Buddhists say, you should meditate for 30 minutes a day. Unless you don't have time, and then you should meditate an hour a day. What you are avoiding the most might be what you need to do the most. In order to grow, develop, and eventually trust yourself more. So you need to be alone. But I love the graded exposure method for this. If you don't like being alone, you've got really two options. You can flood yourself with the experience and go do a 10-day silent retreat, although you're not fully alone with that, but it's close. Or you can do graded exposure, where you go for walks alone, undistracted, for like 20-30 minutes a day. If you are living with people right now, I suggest that you make plans to move out and be alone. Or if you can't do that, maybe you've got a wife and kids, take a trip alone on a weekend. Tell your wife, this is important to me, it's important to our family. I'm going away for a weekend. If you're afraid to say that to her, then that's a whole other conversation, isn't it? But man, you absolutely have to be alone. And if you say to me, I don't like being alone, I can't do it. I've had some people tell me that. I can't do it, I can't be alone. One, yes you can, right? So let's just throw that idea out. But two, I advise you to, as you're alone, get really clear about what it is that you don't like about being alone. When you say I can't be alone, what do you mean by that? Let's get more specific. How do you feel when you're alone? What comes up? Is it fear? Is it sadness? There's some emotion that's coming up when you're alone that you're not fully in touch with yet. And this is why being alone is so important. You cannot be fully authentic. You cannot live your own life if you're afraid of being alone. So you absolutely must start putting things in place to be comfortable alone. Because when you are comfortable alone, you will not tolerate bullshit from other people. You will not tolerate friendships that don't serve you anymore. When you're comfortable being alone, you will be way more comfortable having solid boundaries in relationships. When you have found your peace with being alone, and you're in the company of people that take away from that peace, then you have no problem distancing yourself from people that don't support your growth and don't help you in some way, don't improve your life. Think of how many people that are in a shit situation in life, they tolerate so much bullshit purely because they're just scared of being alone. I don't want that to be you, man. I'm alone in this house for an entire month in the north of Portugal to focus on videos, to focus on writing, to focus on meditation, and finally making my way through this big list of existential movies I've created. So that's my alone time. But mate, I'm back making videos again. So I appreciate you watching. Pop a comment down below and let me know how comfortable you are with being alone. And if you have any advice for any other men watching this who struggle with being alone as well. Take care, mate, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.